the dirt ain't fly, you ain't trying. Quit man takes down a barrel, unfortunately. That will hurt him. But Fred Newfound has got that Cummins engine ready for
Rural Manitoba. Beautiful, serene, and expansive. Manitoba is home to thousands of horses of all breeds. If you take a drive out of the country, there is a good chance you will see one of humankind's oldest friends. Perhaps in a pasture, or with modern-day cowboys riding the trail. Without the noble steed, North America as we know it would be different. Native Americans wholly adopted the horses brought by early Europeans, and it radically changed their lives. In the lawless days of old, settling the West was reserved for the toughest and could only be done with horsepower. Here in Canada and the United States, chuckwagons filled with families pulled by horses heading to new homesteads were a common sight. In modern times, the chuckwagon has been largely relegated to history. Or has it? If you've ever been to a small-town country fair, chances are you may have seen one still in action.
There's the horn, the charge is underway. He went wide, pulled himself good on his top barrel. This one's right on the front guard. Lost the boss now, and Curtis Callan at high proceed. Leads the way to that 1-2 turn. Running third in his pole rebound and pushing livestock. Curtis Callan has got a lead by about a horse length over. Lost the boss now. Now comes down and sit on the burner. He'll lift up that high proceed wagon, but he's staying with him. His brother steered in here, but lost the boss now and running third. Paul Newfeld switching livestock. As they make their final drive, Tiberius George there to come alive. Out front, that's first one holding. That is Curtis Calder in the high proceed wagon. Run second, lost the boss now and third. Paul Newfeld switching livestock. If he goes two,
Evolving from the practical applications of transport and shelter, the modern chuckwagon is now smaller and built for speed as equine racers.
Chuckwagon racing started, well, back a long time ago with the Old West, I guess, if you want to go back far enough. The whole idea was packing up the chuckwagon and racing from one camp to the next and setting up camp, which is the chuckwagon, which held the food, and on a cattle drive, and that's how they set it up. They used to race back, and tradition went from there. Calgary started. They used to actually throw a stove in the back of the wagon, and then the first one to make fire at the end of the race, set up camp, was the winner of the race. They've progressed from your traditional old wooden style wagon to aluminum boxes. Some guys have aluminum frames. The wheels have bearings now. It's evolved to where you're running a pretty streamlined racing wagon. It still has to be up to weight, but it's come a long ways as far as design.
Like in any sport, there are rules that govern chuckwagon racing. For example, you can't just hook any horse you want up to the wagon and run them. Qualifying rules are in place for fairness and safety.
Linear laser lines set up, and you lead the horse across. If it makes it under that line at any point in 4 feet, it's good to run on the chuckwagons. They have to measure the horse every year until it's 5 years old. If you measure a horse when it's 2, 3, or 4 years old, it gets a hoof brand, identifying that it's been measured, and that brand shows the whole season. You can run it all that year. Once they're 5 years old and have a 5-year-old tooth coming in, they do a freeze brand. It's a white brand that is on the shoulder of the horse, and then it's branded for life. You don't have to measure it again.
Once it's determined that a horse can now legally run sanctioned races, the training and conditioning begins.
If I have an old pickup truck, we tie 4 of them on there and lead them around the field. It's a good way of exercising. Some guys just turn them out in the field, chase them with a quad. It's just anything to get some wind in them, get their legs built up, and have them ready for the first year. We run a pretty long season, so it's nice to have them fit and ready to go come race time.
As the summer nears and the horses have been properly conditioned to run, the task of creating a great pull team is now of high importance.
And there's a few horses that actually run better when they can see all around them. Mine all seem to work better if they're just focused in front of them. At least I think they do.
You got to have a good barreling outfit if you're going to do well, because half the races are won in the barrels. How two horses will drive together too. You can have two real fast horses, but if they don't work together, you're just coming out behind.
The biggest thing we have to try and do is try and get four horses that match up running wise and work together. You could take a horse off 4 different wagons and put those 4 horses together and they might not do anything, even though they're the 4 fastest horses on the track. They just don't gel as a team.
Starting in June and running through to September, small country fairs across Manitoba take place, with most having deep agricultural roots, and the events that take place reflect this.
Fourth place to number 24, Levi Legacy, shown by Maya Wigger.
Many of the events at these fairs are horse and cattle centric. Chuckwagon racing is generally one of the main attractions, drawing both veteran and curious first-time spectators.
I believe there are people that'll come just to see the races. You know, oh, I'm not a beer gardens person, or, you know, no, I'm not really into, you know, big horse shows or, you know, light horse shows. No, I'm here to see the action at the track, to see them turn and burn in the barrels. I'm here to see the races. I believe there's lots of people that come here just for that.
This is probably one of the biggest sports that people go to watch and enjoy. I know our hometown show at Spy Hill, I said they make sure they get the races there because everybody in the area, they come to watch. If you go to most of these little shows, the grandstands are full. People love them. And I said we have to have these shows for us, because I said we couldn't afford just to have these horses to race 1 or 2 shows. It'd be kind of disheartening just to have that many. So we're glad these local little fairs come up with the money to get us in and stuff like that. But like I said, it's a big undertaking on their part, because I said we want money to come race, and they somehow find it every year for us to come and put a show on for them. So.
Smaller fairs don't have a whole lot going on at their fairs. I know there's been a couple small town fairs that have kind of dwindled over the years. They've added chuckwagon racing to their fair, and it's kind of brought the fair back up to where it's an annual thing, and the crowd really enjoys it.
If you were to attend a race at one of these fairs, you'll be surprised to learn that most of the competitors also do a modern version of chariot racing.
The horse down! Who's got enough equine muscle to hustle around the track? Doing some turning and burning off of them woodward dodge barrels is Sheldon Milford, AM to PM Hot Shot. The man on the move right now is Miles McNally and Patrick. Third is still Ken Callender's Brewing Industries. Looks like Miles and Raymond. Who's going to have it up? This heat is going to go to Corey Lucan and the Harlan Livestock outfit.
Chariot racing is when you hook two horses on a small chariot just with two wheels. They're actually the size of wheelbarrow wheels under the chariot, and you just drive your two horses. You got to make your figure-8 pattern in the barreling area, and it's generally about a half-mile track.
Unlike in the days of yore during the Roman Empire, the goal is not to kill off your opponents. The goal is to simply beat them to the finish line as fast as possible.
Gonna battle it out, knockdown, drag out, fight here for first place. Looks like right now, let's see the from Corey Lucan here, he's number 1. We'll settle for third. A very, very exciting start in our first.
There is no doubt that Chuckwagon and Chariot are fast-paced and exciting. But what are the rules governing the races themselves?
The Chuckwagon is 4 horses hooked to a wagon, and you have leader horses and you have your pole horses. And what it is you go in and you do a figure-8 in the barrels. When the horn grows, you come out on the track. If it's safe and you're ahead of everybody, you can go to the rail, and if not, you gotta stay in your lane and race in your lane until it's clear to either go down or race that way around the track. There's if you hit a barrel, it's a 5-second penalty. If you miss a barrel, it's a 10-second penalty. If you come into the barrels too fast and you get ahead of it, there's a 2-second penalty. There's lots of penalties that are involved, and then on the track they watch for interference, and hopefully you don't interfere with anybody and have a clean race, and everybody shakes hand and says good race after you're done.
To say it's not an adrenaline rush is a bit of a lie. We go out there and you pull into the barrels and you're on the lines. You feel all 4 horses wanting to go, and it's when the horn blows, they go, and you got to have your stuff together or you'll end up in a bit of a mix-up. But when all goes well and every horse does its job, it is an adrenaline rush.
Your adrenaline is sitting pretty high because when she goes, you know you're going for a whirlwind of a ride, and you hope everything works, because if it doesn't, you could be in a world of hurt real quick, or if it works well, you're all the glory in the world.
With races being conducted at multiple fairs across Manitoba, putting these shows on is not cheap or easy.
As far as staff goes, there's 6 or 7 people that are employed by the association, and then there's all the racers that attend to put the show on.
There's the horn. Let's steer and gear those teams to the finish. Curtis Callender has taken down a barrel. That's going to cost him, but he is the first man out on the track. On the inside, Ross the Bosch now, and third, Paul Newfeld, Quintain Livestock in that 1-2 turn. They are strung out like a freight train. The locomotive on the front end is Curtis Callender in the High Pro Feeds wagon. Ross the Bosch now. Wirtz Brothers has got nowhere to go, and running third, eating dirt, is Paul Newfeld, Quintain Livestock. They head into that 3-4 turn. Looked like Ross Schnell was trying to make a move though. Moving on up on Curtis Callender, High Pro Feeds. Running third is still Paul Newfeld, Quintain Livestock as they make their final drive. It's your turn to come alive, Carberry. On the inside, moving on up, it is Wirtz Brothers, Ross LaVaugh, Schnell, Curtis Callender, High Pro Feeds at the wire. It is going to be
Most shows we run 3 wagons, so when you're going in for that, you'll have 3 wagons, which is 3 drivers, and every driver has to have a holder, and what he's there for is in case there's trouble, he can run in and get a hold of horses or whatever else like that. So every race you have basically 12 horses, 3 wagons, 3 drivers and 3 holders, and then there's your judges. There we've always has a mounted judge on for just in case something gets away, he can chase them down and catch them, and then the judges, and then we have an announcer and timekeepers. So I said there's, for every race, there's probably close to 20 people involved.
There's the horn. Hooves down like thunder. Makes you wonder who's got enough lightning in a bottle to get.
Sponsorships and prize money, you're going to cover your costs for traveling up and down the road, and your meals if you want to buy a beer or whatever you're going to buy. As far as, it doesn't cover buying your truck and trailer and or whatever you're traveling with, but if you're doing fairly decent, playing this in top 5 or 10, you're going to have your costs covered for the weekend.
It's not cheap. You'll after you've put everything together and your winnings for the year, you just wonder why you keep doing it, but it's for the love of the sport. But I look at it this way. People go to the lake with their $80,000 campers and their boats and everything else like this. I go with my Chuckwagon every weekend. I get my gas money paid.
We got McCurry this weekend, then we'll have an empty weekend, and then I'm going to go out west out to Patricia, Alberta on the long weekend of September, and then I might stick out there for a week after that and run a show at Millerville, Alberta, just outside of Calgary. For the most part, guys are farmers, ranchers. There is the odd Monday to Friday guy like myself that gets the weekends off and some vacation. Some of the guys up northern Saskatchewan log. They work all winter in the bush and they have the summer off. A couple of our guys got to be teachers, so they get a full break in the summer. It works out really good for making it to all the races. But we're such a wide range. Everybody does something different. But for the most part, guys work when they're not racing.
We do Morris, Manitoba, Carberry, St. Rose, McCurry, Selkirk, Toulon has races now. We're starting to get a few more races every year, so starting to get a few. And like I said, Elkhorn here and stuff like that, they all put on a good show. They invite us and they do a good job. So,
with powerful animals harnessed for speed in an exciting environment, what exactly are the risks to both horse and driver?
Whether you're racing stock cars or motorbikes or horses, accidents can happen. They're not supposed to. There's a lot happening out there. We got 3 wagons out there at once. There's 12 horses out there. If all goes the way it's supposed to, everything's good. If anything does happen, there's a lot that could happen. We've been fortunate enough over the last few years to not have very many wrecks, and I mean, I'd like to say we could keep it that way, but when there's livestock and speed and whatever involved, it's stuff that can happen, but we don't like to see it happen, but it could happen at any time.
As the racing season progresses, with wins and losses tabulated and fun being had by all, how does the Racing Association determine the overall season winner?
1 to 24 gets, number 1 gets 29 points, number 24 will get 6 points, and then if there's more wagons after 24, everybody gets 5 points. And at the end of the season, the one person that has gained the most points is your overall season winner.
On average, if you're placing well, top 5, it's possible you could win the high points for the year. Most times it's going to be top 1, 2, or 3 or something like that to win the high points of the year.
Still Mike Milford leading now by about 2 good horse lengths over Gilbert Susie and Susie Hayfarm. The sound of thunder, the speed of lightning, they're coming home. On the outside it is Mike Milford. Gilbert Susie making a mad dash on the inside. Isn't going to have enough. Mike Milford takes heat number 7. Very set, close second, Gilbert Susie.
Smaller communities, we seem to have a following of fans, if you'll call them fans, that follow the circuit a little bit. They really get into it at the small communities. Guys have went to Calgary and they say it's not near as intimate and interactive as watching the races at a small town. The smaller bleachers are set up closer to the action, and you kind of feel like you're more a part of it than just a spectator at some of the larger venues.
The horn sounds on heat number 3 and
Manitobans looking for something to bounce their fair or Ag Society back up to a more popular event, I think we're a great addition to any sport.
Chuckwagon racing. Most Manitobans don't know it exists, but it is and has been part of Manitoba's heritage and rural culture.